You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Hey, welcome back, my minions out there in the chat room here at Normal Show Live. We're doing a special extra after the show rant today because last night here in beautiful Potland, Oregon, my local, I think it's ABC affiliate, KATU, KATU, Channel 2 here in Portland, Oregon, did a special report. It was like 11 o'clock news. I'm getting ready to maybe hit the sack, and I noticed there's going to be a special report where reporter Anna Song goes undercover to discover how easy it is to get a medical marijuana card in the state of Oregon. So naturally, this piqued my interest, and I stayed up to watch the report. To be fair, the report is entitled, How Difficult Is It to Get a Medical Marijuana Card? I'm going to play the report for you. It's about, strangely enough, 4 minutes and 20 seconds long. I'll play the report for you, and then we'll have a little chat about it right afterwards. So hold on, let me find the thing. All right, let's switch over. We'll watch this video from KATU News last night.
To a local medical marijuana clinic. As I approach, I'm greeted by a man on a smoke break who confirms why I'm there and proceeds to review my medical records right on the sidewalk, cigarette in mouth. He says these look good, puts out his cig, and tells me to follow him inside. Once inside, I'm given paperwork to fill out. My medical records are copied, and I'm told to return for an appointment at 5:04 next Monday. Fast forward to appointment day, 5:04 p.m. Same greeter. He takes my $200 fee, issues me a handwritten receipt because the credit card machine is not printing. Then I wait. Other patients arrive, then more, then more. Nearly 45 minutes later, we're all still waiting for the doctor, who we're told is late returning from lunch at nearly 6 in the evening. Finally, the doctor returns, and I'm seen for no more than 10 minutes. He takes a look at my medical records, which do in fact reflect 2 different appointments for pain with my primary care physician within the last 3 years. See, that's a requirement. 2 appointments at least 90 days apart. Severe pain happens to be the #1 condition people give when they apply for a medical marijuana card. Of the 33,000 patients currently holding cards, a full 29,500 state severe pain as an ailment. Persistent muscle spasms and nausea follow as a distant second and third, then come cancer, seizures, and the rest. As I applied for this card, I did not make up any medical issues. My neck and back pain relate to 3 car accidents, of which I was not at fault, and scoliosis, the curvature of my spine. There are conditions charted in my medical records by my doctor, for which I've fairly successfully treated with massage therapy over the years, not marijuana. And on this day, it's enough for the doctor to sign off, saying the patient may not only qualify, that's crossed out, but may benefit from medical marijuana.
And this year we should top $5 million.
$5 million.
In total.
Business is booming for Paul Stanford. He's the founder of the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, which has medical marijuana clinics in 9 states, including Oregon and Washington. He does not run the clinic I visited.
This is our record room, and it's where we store 110,000 medical files.
He acknowledges there is corruption with medical marijuana, but at every level, including the disproportionate number of patients claiming severe pain as their ailment.
Well, I think there might be some people who are using it just to get medical marijuana, but I think, especially in our clinics, that the patients actually do have these conditions.
Here, medical records for each patient are reviewed before they can even see the doctor, and this stack consists of people who didn't make the cut. Still, Stanford's Southeast Portland location features Dr. Sandra Camacho, who authorized 8,760 medical marijuana cards just in the past year, far and above any other doctor in the state.
We try to provide that door to allow them to be able to use it without any legal issues.
Over year after year after year, cannabis is by far the #1 controlled substance that comes back
through toxicology.
Sergeant Michael Ely is a drug recognition expert with the Oregon State Police. He says from a law enforcement perspective, a medical marijuana card isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for impaired drivers.
They also feel that in their own minds, mentally speaking, that it's okay, that there's nothing wrong with this. It's that attitude.
Rounding out my experience as I leave the clinic with paperwork in hand, the receptionist comes outside telling me he's willing to connect me with a grower. Then this man, the one dressed in camo, runs after me, telling me he overheard my conversation about needing a grower. He hands me this sample of his product so that I can, quote, start smoking weed today, and offers to provide me up to 3 pounds of pot a year. 3 pounds. I tell him we'll be in touch. I'm on your side investigator Anna Song, reporting for KATU News.
Yeah, I suppose if you can call that reporting, this is a supposed 9-time regional Emmy winner and an Edward R. Murrow Award winner giving us that kind of shoddy journalism. Let me break this down for you, Anna Song. Yes, if you legally qualify for a medical marijuana card, it's easy to get one. You've been in 3 car accidents. You have severe chronic pain and scoliosis. As you point out, you didn't lie, and since the clinic rightfully followed the law, you qualified. Medical science and Oregon law recognizes your right to treat your chronic pain with what a DEA administrative law judge called, quote, the safest therapeutically active substance known to man, end quote. What this report suffers from is what I call the medicine of last resort bias against cannabis, the safest medicine known to man. You mentioned that you successfully treated your pain with massage therapy, as if some other successful pain treatment means you shouldn't qualify for medical cannabis. Do massage therapists enter their notes in your medical records that you turned into the clinic's doctor? How do you know whether the cannabis would be equally as effective as your massage therapy? Or how do you know that maybe combining it with the massage therapy might not be better? And Anna Song, what do you say to the patients on fixed incomes who, unlike you, don't have the money and insurance for regular massage therapy appointments, but might have a friend who could grow them some cannabis? Pain is severely undertreated in this country, and those who suffer from it are often stigmatized as drug-seeking when they try to find some relief. A survey by the Arthritis Foundation found that 42% of adults suffer some kind of pain daily, and 89% suffer pain monthly. With a mean prevalence of chronic pain as determined in a 2003 study by Harstall and others, that the mean prevalence of chronic pain in the United States is 35.5% of the adult population. So, when you try to scare me with, 29,500 patients with chronic pain, I can only think, let me see, there's 2.9 million adults in Oregon. 35% of that would be 1 million adults with chronic pain. Gosh, 29,500 seems to me far too few patients using cannabis to treat pain. Besides, what other remedies do they got? Last year, the FDA called for even stricter controls and tighter warnings on prescription and over-the-counter acetaminophen, things like Tylenol, and NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin, ibuprofen, and naproxen, because of, quote, unintentional and intentional overdoses leading to severe hepatotoxicity, otherwise known as liver failure, end quote. More serious painkillers of the opioid variety, like OxyContin, Vicodin, Darvocet, and so on, are also hepatotoxic, as well as physically addictive and very much more mind, mood, and reaction altering than smoking a joint. Also, you try to scare us by flashing the 29,500 number in big digits and say it in the voiceover, 29,500 out of 33,000, while quickly dispatching the muscle spasms and nausea as, quote, distant second and third, with no voiceover of those numbers, followed by the remaining conditions being listed in a smaller font. But any third grader checking the numbers would be able to notice they add up to much more than 33,000. Almost half of them if you add up all of the non-chronic pain conditions, 16,000 of them, which mean that many of these pain patients are indicating it as a secondary condition of their cancer, AIDS, nausea, muscle spasms, multiple sclerosis, and so forth. This report is nothing more than just a love song to the demagoguery of medical marijuana opponents who want to paint some sort of picture of rampant abuse where there is none. Every year, according to the Oregon's Oscar database, their cancer registry, there are 17,000 new cases of cancer every year diagnosed in Oregon. Estimates from the organizations that work with some of those other conditions, like HIV, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, glaucoma, epilepsy, and chronic nausea, estimate that there are 125,000 new cases every year in Oregon among adults. If anything, 33,000 medical marijuana patients is far too few patients and an indictment of the demonization of cannabis that prevents all but the most desperate patients from seeking it and keeps all but the bravest doctors from recommending it. Speaking of whom, Dr. Camacho Otero, who is signed for more cards than any other doctor, is unfairly implied to be unprofessional or money-grubbing for doing so. It is no more surprising for Dr. Camacho Otero to sign for large amounts of cards here than it would be unusual for a single abortion provider to provide the majority of abortions in Wichita, Kansas. What every report that I've seen on these top 10 pot docs always fails to mention is that there are thousands of Oregon doctors who are very accepting, but they'd love to recommend medical marijuana, but they're prevented by their hospital, clinic, HMO, the VA, or any sort of federal ties from making those recommendations. So we've created this system where most doctors can't recommend. Some of the rest of them won't recommend for fear of being labeled a pot doc on the evening news, and the few that are brave enough to treat their patients with a non-toxic, effective legal herb are pilloried for trying to help people in pain get relief. If there is any scandal to be reported on here, it is not that too few patients are getting medical marijuana to deal with their pain. It is the gross violations of HIPAA and medical privacy regulations demonstrated by this one receptionist at this one clinic. It's the lack of a dispensary system that leaves patients to be preyed upon by growers hanging out in front of clinics overhearing private medical information. And if you want scandal, it is a reporter disposing of medicine in a responsible way instead of giving it away, which is legal, to a fellow patient who could have used it for some real medical purposes rather than as a prop for a medical marijuana hit piece. And let's talk for a second about the money. They put Paul Stanford in here as well to try to say, oh, he made $5 million on his medical marijuana clinics, kind of glossing over the fact that's $5 million from operations in 10 states, mind you, right? Even if every single one of the 33,000 Oregon medical marijuana patients saw Paul Stanford's clinic, which they don't, but even if every single one did, at $200 a piece, that's $6.6 million. He's claiming to to gross $5 million, and you got to believe that after payroll and all the bills and the mortgages and the licenses and the insurance and all of that, he's not clearing that much. And even if he is, so what? Is it a crime in America to get paid for providing medical services? Last I checked, it wasn't. I mean, how much does the average, massage therapy clinic make in the average year, Anna Song? To try to portray these people as being money grubbing for providing a service that most people are afraid to get is reprehensible journalism. I hesitate to even call it journalism. This is just another hit piece, like I said, for the big business interests and the law enforcement interests that are trying to scare Oregonians who by and large support this Medical Marijuana Act, who voted for it 55%, try to scare them into thinking there's some sort of rampant abuse and we need to clamp down and make it tougher, more difficult for people to get marijuana than to get oxycodone. This is insane. Furthermore, talking a little bit more about this hit piece going on here. By the way, the reason that I had to play this in the after show is because this story was featured on the Drew Curtis website FARC, and John can tell you FARC is like a major. I mean, once you hit FARC, it's just going global.
It's going crazy. Yeah, I mean, people, and it's a big community of people that comment on these websites. So they're getting hit, and that's why you were hearing skipping during the video, is because their bandwidth just can't take it. Yeah,
we're just hitting them. And it's, of course, FARC, they classify everything with these little tags, and the tag for this story is fail. Fail. Major fail. But, in addition to talking about, I was just mentioning Paul Stanford and the money they make, and they're trying to portray the doctors as being money grubbing or this being some sort of abuse. Let's talk for a second about the money the state makes off this program. Oregon's medical marijuana program is different than a whole lot of other programs in that it has a state registry. You have to register, and and you have to get a card. Every year, these patients have to go spend $100 paid directly to the state to get their card, right?
Plus the cost of the doctor.
Plus, oh yeah, you got to go see the doctor too every year. There's another $200. So for $300 every year, a Vietnam vet in a wheelchair has to prove that he's in enough pain and he's really paralyzed so that he can continue to get his medical marijuana. Yet, if he goes to the DMV to get a handicap placard in the state of Oregon, he can keep that for 8 years. Doesn't have to keep re-upping with the state. Once every 8 years when he renews his driver's license, he has to renew that handicap placard. But if he wants to get treatment for his pain, this paralyzed man has to prove it every year to a doctor and spend $100 at the state. The Oregon medical marijuana program has never cost a dime of taxpayer money. It has been completely self-funded and runs a surplus every year. And in fact, the state of Oregon, I think it was 2005, I may be wrong on the year, but recently the state of Oregon actually transferred $920,000 of the medical marijuana surplus to make up the budget shortfalls in other state programs. So you want to talk about somebody making money off patients? It's the state of Oregon. Now, personally, I'm thinking that considering there's 33,000 patients in the state of Oregon, but there's 357,000 marijuana consumers in the state of Oregon, the state would be better served to try to get that money out of 10 times a larger pool of consumers than to just focus on the 5% of us that have a medical need. But, that would be logical, and that would be a forward-thinking and progressive thing to do in the state of Oregon, and might actually generate some jobs and tax revenue. So, boy, that's off the table. You can tell this has got me all riled up, John.
Definitely.
I'm scrolling through some of the comments too because I have I wrote very extensively on the KATU website, and many people are responding to my points there, and I was just trying to find some more stuff, but boy, I've ranted on long enough about this. We're almost hitting about the 20-minute mark. So, folks in the chat room, let me check up on the chat. This is recorded, by the way. We are recording this rant. You can check out the KATU website, KATU.com, or Google Anna Song. John was telling me that Google's even picking up on this.
Yes, Google is picking up on this, and, she's done a few stories at the cafe. I've talked to her. I told her my story, and she told me how absurd it was. So,
yeah,
don't know what Anna Song really thinks. But anyways, if you look up Anna Song, one of the auto-completes on Google is Anna Song marijuana.
Anna Song marijuana. That's right. Just check it out on Google. The other thing I want to get to is this concept of abuse. Okay, this is, this concept they're trying to get across, and I've heard it not just in Oregon, but they point to it in Colorado with its rapidly increasing rolls, like something like 1,000 registrants a week or something like that. California, of course, doesn't have a registry. Michigan has a registry. But they all the opponents always try to paint this abuse, and part of their reasoning is this. Well, when you said medical marijuana, you said it would be for the cancer patients and the AIDS patients, and look at all these people. You only said there'd be 500, and my God, there's like 30,000. Oh my God, it's abuse. Well, what exactly is this abuse? Let's just say I'm a guy who smokes pot. That's pretty easy. I am a guy who smokes pot.
It's not a stretch of the imagination, Russ.
I think we can go there.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a guy who smokes pot, and I'm perfectly healthy, right? I don't have any medical conditions that are listed on the registry. I don't even have really severe chronic pain. I might get a headache now and then, or backache from working out too hard or something. But generally, I don't really need marijuana. Let's say though that I go see a doctor, and I bring some medical records from some of my, operations I've had in the past, or visits to the doctor that show I've had pain in the past. And let's say I convince a doctor to give me a recommendation for medical marijuana, and then I go down to the state and I pay my $100 to the state and I get my medical marijuana card. This is the abuse we're fearing, that somebody who's healthy might be smoking a doobie and doing so after having paid the state $100 to do it, and saving the state all the time and the resources and the money to investigate and prosecute me from doing so? You mean this abuse we're talking about is people that are currently considered criminals trying to follow a law, trying to pay money to the state? This is the abuse, the rampant abuse we're so worried about? The only way this abuse idea makes any sort of sense is if you really believe that medical marijuana is the medicine of last resort. That, all right, If you got cancer or AIDS or you're in a wheelchair and you look really, really awful, then you can smoke a joint because, my God, what do you have left to lose, right? If you really believe that, then what you're saying is there is a pain number line. And on one end of the pain number line is torture, Gitmo style. And the other end of the pain is, a noogie or a paper cut or whatever, right? You are saying that there's a number line, and somewhere on that pain number line, there's a point at which you're in severe enough pain to justify not taking you away, locking you up in a cage, forfeiting all your property, busting up your family, losing your child support, putting a black mark on your record for the rest of your life that affects all your employment and educational choices. Somewhere on that line, somewhere between Gitmo torture and paper cut, there's a point at which we won't throw you in prison. But if you're not in that much pain, by God, you better take Vicodin. By God, you better take aspirin. By God, you better take Tylenol. By God, you better take any number of these prescription or over-the-counter medications that are bad for your liver and have severe side effects and actually can kill you if you take enough of them, unlike cannabis. That's what you're telling me. That's what you're telling me abuse is if you don't hurt enough, by God, you can't have it. For me, it really comes down to what is medical use? I think about what is medical use. I'm on this prescription medication for my cholesterol. My doctor found out that I have too high cholesterol, and, between the Mountain Dew, the gummy bears, and the Big Macs, maybe that's, a problem.
Hot dogs, too.
Hot dogs, yeah. So I got too
Microwave burritos.
Yeah,
sorry.
Burritos, yeah, So, yeah, I got the high cholesterol. All right, so she has prescribed for me this prescription medication called Lovesa. I have to take 4 of these capsules a day. Prescription medication, I got to pay a lot of money for it. Even with insurance, it costs me a whole lot. And I got to pick that up every month, and I got to take this because it's to save my life, right? Because the cholesterol could cause a stroke, cause a heart attack, deadly. There's no doubt my use of this Lovesa is medical, right? Doctor said I could have it. Doctor has to say I could have it. I got to go pick it up at a pharmacy, got to pay a lot of money, and it's definitely for a medical condition. It's absolutely medical use. But this Lovesa, you see, is just fish oil. All it is a hyper-concentrated fish oil capsule. Now, you can go buy fish oil capsules at your local health food store. They're not this concentrated. Literally, these pills are like 900 times what you could get in a regular fish oil capsule. But it's the same thing, right? You can get fish oil over the counter in a very dilute amount as a nutritional supplement. Or if you get really bad off like me, you can get a doctor to prescribe you this Lovesa. Now, obviously, my use is medical because it's prescription and all, but what about the person who's perfectly healthy, who goes to the health food store and gets some of those fish oil pills to stave off high cholesterol, to bring in more essential fatty acids and omega-3s and omega-6s that are so good for our nutrition and we could pick up easier from hemp seed oil? But I digress. Is the guy using the fish oil capsules from the health food store using it medically? Or is he using it recreationally? Well, I think most people would argue that's a medical use, right? But you're not trying to treat something that has already happened, high cholesterol from bad junk food diet all your life as a stoner musician. But instead, you're treating something that has yet to occur. You're trying to stave it off. You're using it as a supplement to help keep your health. Is that medical? Because for so many of these people that are using cannabis, both under the guise of a medical marijuana program and without, that's the way they use cannabis. Like the fish oil capsules they can pick up at the health food store. It's a supplement to their life. If they have a headache, they don't reach for a Tylenol, they reach for a joint. When they're stressed out from a long day at work, they don't reach for a martini or call the psychopharmacologist to get themselves some Utopium or Xanax or whatever. They smoke a joint. Is that use medical? Relieving your stress? Relieving a small headache from a day? Relieving the aches and pains that come with growing older? Or is that recreational? I think the only way that you can get your mind around the idea that medical marijuana is somehow being abused after you force these people to go see their doctor, get their medical records, pay $200, go see another doctor, go to the state, pay another $100, give the state their name and address, post up a notice on their door, on their inside their house by their grow that says this is where I'm growing cannabis, and agreeing to be limited to 24 ounces and 6 mature plants. After going through all of that, you think someone that's doing that is abusing the system? It's ridiculous. We've got to legalize marijuana for all people so long as we have this insane, unjustifiable line that defines some use as medical and some use as not. You're not in enough pain or you're in too much pain. You've got the right condition. You don't have the right condition. As long as we have these stupid reasons to divide patient from criminal, the people on law enforcement and business are always going to push that line so there's more criminals and less patients. It's time to legalize marijuana. Let's get it done. That's it, man.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
I mean, we could talk about this all day long.
We could.
And, there's something I wanted to bring up. The thing that, my experience with getting my Oregon medical marijuana card is I went and got it. My doctor didn't fill the paperwork out right, so they took my $100 and they told me to go F myself.
They kept the money.
Yes. So I had to go see my doctor again.
Oh, man.
And, I got a relationship with my doctor. I don't have to pay to see him. I'm lucky. But I had to drive 3 hours to go see my doctor again, have him, he said, I'll just sign it, you fill it out.
Yeah.
I filled it out, I paid my $100 again.
Yeah.
They didn't care. I mean, it's people constantly getting screwed, and you talk about you don't look sick enough.
Yeah.
What about, we'll go back in the Wayback Machine in 2008, Randy Posh, the guy who did the last lecture. He didn't look sick enough.
Yeah.
He was in Star Trek, guys.
Yeah.
He died a couple months later,
right.
and he looked great. And I mean, it's just, Russ is more articulate about this, but...
well, I always wonder how the cops and how the naysayers can identify someone who has epilepsy by sight.
Yeah, just by sight.
Oh, yeah, look at that guy, irritable bowel syndrome. He's all right. Go on.
It takes a doctor a long time to do that by sight. Well, and they don't. They don't. It's silly. It's silly.
I just think the cops must have a wonderful medical diagnosis training program at the academy.
Really good. But they don't have a very good hemp versus cannabis training program.
Yeah, they can pick out a guy who doesn't have epilepsy from 100 yards, but they can't tell the difference between a hemp plant and a cannabis plant. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Well, thank you, chatters, for letting us vent a little bit.
Yeah, we had to dish on this Anna song thing. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It's again more of this fear mongering about medical marijuana that I've kind of predicted was going to happen. That eventually we'd get to the point where our opponents would go, all right, 70%, 80% of you support it. The science seems to say it does have medical value. All right, it's medical. And then what they'll do is try to, all right, let's define medical here, and let's try and make this more like OxyContin and less like aspirin. That's what they're going to do. And that's what they're doing. We're starting to see that. And that's why I think it's so imperative that medical, if you're in a non-medical marijuana state, by God, go for medical marijuana. Absolutely. Make that move. I'm not saying anybody in a non-medical marijuana state shouldn't be going for it. But if you're in a medical marijuana state, especially out here on the West Coast, it's time to move to legalization, man. When we first started this, 1996, when they were passing Prop 215 in California, 1998, they're passing Measure 67 here in Oregon, the measure in Washington in 98. Back in those days, the whole rallying cry was, nobody deserves to go to jail for cannabis. But by God, when it comes to ending the war on drugs, the patients have to be in the front of the line. We've got to put the sick and dying up at the front of the line. It's unconscionable to not let the sick and dying people up at the front of the line. And I agree. I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely, man. A guy who's in a wheelchair, John here who's on kidney dialysis, definitely those guys get in the front of the line. You definitely deserve medical weed. But when you've been sitting in the back of the line for 12 to 14 years, watching another 9 million cannabis users who are healthy like you getting arrested and having their lives ruined, eventually you get a little tired of being at the back of the line.
It's a great analogy, Russ, because you know what? People are going to, hate me for this. Go ahead, email me, send me hate mail. This is a sitting in the back of the bus thing.
Yeah.
We're tired of it.
Yeah.
And we want it at the front of the line.
Yeah, it's a civil rights issue. We are so tired of looking around and seeing, the House of Representatives voting on Craft Beer Week, which is great. Yeah, sure, celebrate craft beer. But to see that everybody else in America who chooses alcohol, a much more deadly, dangerous, both to the user and to society drug, and that's celebrated and openly tolerated, and, a movie like The Hangover makes, hundreds of millions of dollars, that's all fantastic, but we're just pointing out, we shouldn't be punished for making a safer choice, for making the choice to use cannabis when we're not hurting anyone else. I'm Radical Russ for Ganja John. Thanks for joining us here for the after show. I don't know if we have any out or anything on this, but
yeah, we do.
We got an out. We'll see y'all later and see you next week. Thanks for sticking around.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.